Welcome. What time is it? 7:05. Sorry we're a little bit late. Just got back from closed session. Mr. Uppert, could you introduce a young man that's going to lead us in the pledge, if you don't mind?
Yeah, this is my son, Mark. And Mark will do the pledge, and hopefully he'll do it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, President Rodriguez.
Thank you. You're a very good-looking young man. You must have came out like your mother, right? No. Anyway, thank you for doing that. We really appreciate it. Okay, I need to report on closed session actions. We talk about labor negotiations and potential litigation and employee items. Okay, with that, we need the approval of the agenda. Member Thomas was with us for the closed session. She's presently in Epcot, the Disney World area in Florida. She won't be joining us for the open session. Okay. Approval of the agenda. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Okay, Member Schaefer moves. Member Crocker seconds. Please vote.
You can vote, yeah. All right.
Okay, motion passes 5 ayes with the student representative voting. Okay. Student council reports, Superintendent.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. It's great to have Bunker Elementary here to start off our spotlight every month. One of our schools brings they're spotlighted to the board. They bring some of the challenges, some of the great things that are happening at the school. But one of the things we wanted to add this year is an opportunity to recognize a classified and certificated employee from each school that is being spotlighted. So Bunker will have the distinct honor of being the first school in Newark Unified School District to have a classified and certificated employee honored during their spotlight. And so to take care of that piece will be Mr. Tim Irwin.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. President Rodriguez and members of the board, this evening we spotlight 2 employees, a classified and a certificated employee from Bunker Elementary School. I would like to invite Doreen Kataki up.
Yay!
Bunker's spotlighted classified employee is Doreen Kataki. As the Bunker's office manager, Doreen is a bundle of wonderful energy who arrives early in August every year and helps to orchestrate the opening of an office and a school site for the start of another school year. She sees herself as a support to everyone who works at Bunker and for someone who can make the difference in parents and guardians, making them feel welcomed and supported by the school community. A quick learner, Doreen is able to promptly adapt to new systems and training and then share her understanding with others, resulting in accurate student record keeping and support. Her enthusiasm is contagious, and she is a joy to work with. Doreen Kataki is Bunker's Spotlight Classified Employee. She says, thank you very much.
Mr. Irwin, could you ask her to introduce some of her family members, if you don't mind?
Yes, you have my husband, Curtis, my son, Brent, and his new wife, Jenny, and my daughter, Diana, who is a teacher at Bunker.
Hey! Thank you.
Bunker's spotlighted certificated employee is Liz Knight.
Yay!
Liz is a first grade teacher. She knows her craft so well that she is an expert in the skills needed for teaching nearly 30 wiggly, energetic first graders. For the past 5 years, Liz has been working to individualize the instruction of reading in her class through the use of a series of 5 literacy tasks known as the Daily 5. The 5 are reading to self, reading with someone, writing, word work, and listening to reading, which students complete daily while Liz meets with small groups and confers with individuals. The students are showing gains in the areas of reading, and the Daily 5 is definitely a part of those gains. For the past 2 years, Liz has also supported other teachers in the use of this strategy in first and through third grade classrooms by sharing her experience as well as her resources and materials that have helped her to implement the Daily 5. Liz Knight is Bunker's spotlighted certificated employee. Congratulations. She also says thank you very much. You want to introduce who you have with you?
My husband, Carrie. You know Carrie.
You should get a special award for that one.
Congratulations. So President Rodriguez, members of the board, I would like to now introduce for the report on Bunker, the spotlight report on Bunker Elementary, their fabulous principal, Mrs. Michelle Bringelson.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you again this evening. This is my 4th time being here, and it is such a pleasure to be able to be here and talk with you about the wonderful things going on at our school. So I would like to say, for those of you who may not know me, my name is Michelle Bringelson, and I am the proud principal at Bunker Elementary School. The wall behind me says Team NUSD because we are a unified school district. We are one part of it. The Bunker part is committed to excellence, as are all of our schools. This evening, tonight's presentation will be focused on the fact that we are part of a district that is a wonderful district and supports us, but we believe that we are a fabulous school. Our district's plan for success each year includes district goals, which are found on the district's website as well as all of our classrooms. And tonight what I plan on doing is focusing on 3 of those goals as they relate to Bunker. Excellence in teaching and learning, you've heard about that through the awards given to our classified and certificated people who also provide a safe and nurturing environment. And with looking at communication, we believe that communication is one of the ways that we are such a connected school to the community. When we consider our first goal, the excellence in teaching and learning, we need to consider the first activity that we engage in every single school year as a staff. And that is a focus on the students at our school and the learning that must be accomplished by them during the school year, not only as a whole group, but as individuals. And this is best accomplished by looking at student data, whether that be state test scores, district assessments, or student classroom tests. The teacher meetings during which we look at assessment data take part as a part of our professional learning communities, which are at our school a focus for the whole year, but in the looking at student data in particular during the first 2 months of the year. One way that we sort data at our school is with the use of focus boards, which includes student information on sticky notes that we can move as our students make growth. Each sticky represents data on a single child. Each board represents a single grade level. The notes are sorted so that teachers and grade levels can easily identify individual student needs and then individualize instruction and plan for interventions. This is all towards the end of making sure that every student is successful at Bunker. At this point, we only have preliminary data from the state for API. The data should be coming out in the next day or so. But for this evening's presentation, I will be referring to it as preliminary estimates. And our preliminary CST estimates for Bunker show gains in the following significant groups. As a staff, we looked at these groups and felt terrific about the gains that had been made. But it was more important for us to look back and reflect on why. And when we looked back, we gave a lot of credit to board math and PACENT, leading to increases in our math scores. Our grade level teachers focus on standards as targets, many of them putting the standards in student-friendly language in their classroom so that students know the reason behind what they're learning. For those accelerated students, we have an eye on next year's standards, preparing them for the growth necessary to go into the next year and be highly successful there. We have interventions within and outside the school day that support in-class learning. Some of these are provided by retired teachers from our school district, others by classroom teachers before and after school. And I would be remiss if I did not mention parent involvement. The parent involvement at our school is extraordinary, and the teachers guide that involvement through discussion with parents about strategies that they can use to reinforce concepts that are being taught in the classroom at home. The preliminary data also showed that there were two significant groups in which we needed to increase our support and do some strategic thinking for supporting their growth towards standards. And so again, we reflected and we made some plans. And so our game plan for 12-13 at Bunker is not only to continue the wonderful work that we have done that's gotten us the gains that we have gotten, but also to include some new elements. Read 180, which has been successful at elementary schools and the junior high and high school, is being introduced this year at Bunker in our upper grade classrooms. There's early literacy work that you heard about the Daily 5 that Liz Knight is doing, as well as the early literacy work that occurs at kindergarten and first grade classrooms where teachers are meeting with parents. They are having parent evenings to discuss with them the kinds of strategies that they can use at home to support students who are having a difficulty in learning the content areas. Cultural competency is a new staff development proposal that has been accepted by our site council and our staff at Bunker. Joy Young, that you probably all know, who is here on a grant, and a colleague of hers, Tricia Banda, who works with Alameda County Behavioral Support Services, are joining together to connect with us and provide us 3 staff development afternoons in which we will look at our changing community. Because the Bunker community of 10 to 15 years ago may have looked a lot like me. But we have grown over the last 10 or 15 years and have the richness of a multicultural and multi-ethnic community around us. We as teachers, staff members, instructional aides, and office need to understand how those changes impact our school and the kinds of supports that we can do to support the students who might be having different needs than we have considered. I would also be remiss if I did not mention those classroom interventions. Teachers often take small groups or provide one-on-one instruction to students in their class, especially those who were listed on the focus student boards. Also, our good fortune with the strategic use of PACENT and board math will be examined for ways that we can use it with students who are struggling in math that had not shown the gains that we expected. You may be familiar with this graph. I brought it here last year. Although 800 is that wonderful threshold with API that we enjoy crossing over, we at Bunker have our sights set higher to another significant area and level. And you can see that in the next graph, where you look at 2006 to 2015. And although the data is preliminary and only an estimate, I have heard that 2012 estimates predict that we have another year of test growth at Bunker. And so the trajectory might look a little like this. We are confident with this trajectory in place that we are going to reach 900. I am confident with the excellent teaching that is going on in the classrooms and parent support that is going on at home. All of these elements define Bunker as a 900 school. Moving on to the district goal of communication, we have revamped the way that we conduct our August registration for families. Rather than holding the process in the crowded, hot front office, we have opened registration for families in the cafeteria. And with the collaborative efforts of our parent-teacher club, who brings the various committees and ways to volunteer at our school into this event, we welcome new families and returning families in a way that feels like they are entering a connected community. In this photo, you can see Doreen at the last station of the event, where parents turn in their registration packet and receive information about which teacher will be teaching their parents' children this year. Moving on to the district goal of providing a safe and nurturing environment where growth of the whole child is honored, Bunker has encouraged student leadership through a variety of opportunities that are available on our site. Last year you heard from Student Leadership Club. This year, the photo here is showing you a visit by the United States Marines to our campus, which was supported by one of our former Marine parents, Mr. Victor de la Cruz. During the Marines' visit, they shared the history of the United States flag as well as the customs and courtesies that surround the flag. Interested sixth grade students were then offered the opportunity to train to raise and lower that flag each day in the proper form. We actually had a group of 25 sixth graders who took that responsibility over from our custodian. So Mr. De La Cruz said he's coming back this year with more Marines, training a whole new group of sixth graders to do this wonderful event. Family participation, as I've mentioned, is key to the Bunker community's growth, and our annual Garden Community Work Days are evidence of this. We've got a strong connection between home and school, and with that strong connection, this committee has planned another set of work days this year in which we will be planting drought-tolerant plants right before the rains come. Our school is clearly a team within a team, the Newark Unified Team. And we thrive from the connection we get from the district, from other school sites, from our families and our staff. They are the reason that our students are healthy, happy, and learning with options for college or whatever they choose beyond them. Thank you for your kind attention to our presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Member Mensinger.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Couple quick questions. Again, congratulations on your preliminary numbers and the successes and the outstanding growth over the years. There's no doubt about it. You have a wonderful staff. I was wondering if things like, you mentioned the Daily Five, and are these how are these successes like this shared with other schools so they can too learn from the successes that you're now enjoying?
I'm glad you brought that up because we had the opportunity at the beginning of the year to have a staff development day on August 23rd. And as a part of that staff development day at elementary, there was a focus on us sharing with each other. So grade level groups were getting together and sharing. First of all, we looked at each other's data, and then we shared from that data the kind of impact that we thought the different strategies that were available at our site and being used had been used. As we move forward to next Monday, when we have our next staff development day, there is again that focus on us sharing what we know about writing with each other and working as an elementary level. That's the focus that I have. I know secondary is doing that as well, but sharing our thoughts about writing rubrics with each other and how they can best be used in a classroom. So that is definitely, we call it bragging to each other, but that is something that is a part of principals meetings and has now entered the realm of staff development days now that we've gotten them back.
Excellent, excellent. I mean, even the Daily Five, I was thinking this is, something that parents could be doing at home too. Whether, and maybe not to the same extent, but read to yourself, read aloud, have somebody read to you, write, because I think those are wonderful little things. It's the first I've heard of it. Those are excellent. I guess this question is for staff. Read 180, is that only at Bunker now for 4 through 6, or all the elementaries doing?
We did not have all of the elementaries. We did have all the Title I schools. And then I utilized some money from that I had in Ed Services budget this year, working with Michelle, and we were able to get computers. We're trying. Do we have the furniture assembled yet?
Almost.
Okay.
By Thursday, we are
not a Title
launching
I
it.
school, though.
No, we had some. I had some additional funds,
Oh, okay.
and so I was able to do Bunker this year. They volunteered, and so we went forth with
So
Bunker this
is
year.
the plan to move Read 180 throughout the district for 4 through 6? I mean, it's a wonderful program. We're seeing significant growth. We've had for years as we first instituted at the junior high. Now we're trying, it seems that we're expanding it. Are we going to try to do that, or?
One of the things we had to look at with the non-Title I schools, and when I spoke with the principals, were you going to be able to maintain it? If we get it started, if we pay
Yeah,
the
good point.
initial fees, do you have the money for the personnel? And so this year we got everything started. Unless something happens in November, Michelle had the money to make it happen and continue to happen after this time. And the other two schools are looking at it perhaps for another year, but it was not feasible for them for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Crocker.
Congratulations. It was a
Thank
wonderful
you.
report. Certainly enjoyed the pictures that you had and all the good reports of what you're doing. It's wonderful. Going to the 180, I'm kind of excited. How many of our schools do have 180 at this point in terms of elementary?
Every one of the elementary schools except 2.
So next year, we should be able to pull those 2 in?
We'll have to work with the principals and look at budgets and see
What does it
if
cost?
it's feasible.
How much more money is that?
You have to purchase computers, there's licenses that you have to purchase, furniture, there's teachers, there's a lot of different, it's not inexpensive.
Right. Okay, that's good. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. And congratulations to Mrs. Knight, Mrs. Kataki. Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Mrs. B, that was
Yes.
excellent.
Thank you so much.
I just had a few things. I had the privilege of attending a meeting before the end of last year with the African American parents and talking about the Summer Algebra Institute. Could you share a little bit? I mean, I was so excited, and I appreciated Bunker and opening up the library to Pastor Jones and everything. Could you share a little bit about that?
Well, it was, I think, the second to last week of school on a Tuesday evening where we opened our school to Pastor Jones, and we had invited many of our families of African American students who were in 6th grade through 9th grade, I believe it was. We focused on 6th grade, and we had 11 students at our school who were invited to join us. And what was marvelous was that evening to see how full the library became. And Pastor Jones came and spoke about his vision of not only providing the Algebra Institute over the summer, but also working with the school district in ways to support the growth of students within the district in the academic areas in particular. He talked about cultural teaching that was enhanced by a background in understanding the different cultural contributions from African Americans into the area of math in particular, and parents were just so impressed with him. It was a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you. And I realize that you have an outreach to all the different ethnic groups, and you do a wonderful job. I had a question on the Newark Days. I know for the first time we had all the schools together, and was that pretty well received? Because I saw all the bunker kids there and everything, and excited, and because bunker normally has been a big participant.
Yes, and I would have to say that the idea was embraced by every single community member at the school. Parents that had enjoyed the competitive spirit in the past said that this was the best change that had happened with the Newark Parade. People felt like they were a member. Newark is such a wonderfully close-knit community that now the school district reflected that. And we, as a school district, walked proudly with each other and mingled with each other. It was really, it had a different feel. So I know that the parents who were working with our teachers in preparing students for the parade were thrilled, and I know people were coming up to me during the parade and saying this was the best idea.
Could you, on behalf of the board, just express our appreciation for all the parents and kids that were involved in the Newark Days?
I will definitely do that.
Could you take a few minutes and introduce some of your staff members and their family that are here?
I'd be happy to. I have Carrie and Liz, and remember, Mr. Rodriguez, that I can't remember my own name right now, so I may need some help, okay? And then I have behind you, met the whole wonderful Kataki family. And then going to the row behind, Colleen, will you raise your hand? Colleen is our new staff member who's a resource teacher at our school, and she is helping us with Read 180. Yay. And behind, we've got Debbie, who was brave enough to wear the Bunker Excellence t-shirt tonight. Debbie Fujikawa, third grade teacher. And then we have Cheryl Jorgens for kindergarten, who guides our kindergarten team, and they guide her. Next, we've got our rebel with the blue. It's Kathleen Waters, who is our fourth grade teacher, and Miss Polly Anderson, who came here this evening after a patient math day and a staff meeting. Thank you for being here this evening. And then I think that does it, and I got everybody's name right, so I'm feeling real good.
I think Member Schaefer wanted to add something.
I just wanted to thank all of you at Bunker. It's pretty obvious that you have targeted goals and that you've really considered thoughtfully how you're going to approach those goals. And I know that all the students at Bunker are big winners as a result. And I just want to say that.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you for having the Marine Corps picture. I mean, I actually looked that good a long time ago. Okay. But
if you'd like to come when the Marines come and visit
I
us,
would
let
love
me
to.
know. Okay.
I know Officer Slater doesn't believe me, but you know I was a Marine a long time ago. Okay, I'll get it to you. Anyway, thank you.
And thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent.
Thank you. Again, thanks Liz and Doreen, first recipients. Job well done. Newark Junior High School, I see Alan in the audience and Satara from did I pronounce it right? Oh, wow, that's pretty good. From Newark Junior High School, welcome. Would you introduce yourselves, please?
I'm Alan Pelicani. I was here about a month ago, and this is my new Vice President, Satara.
Hi.
By the way, I like your tie, Mr. Messenger.
Thank you. It's pink, yeah.
Anyway, I would first like to thank Mr. Rodriguez and the entire board for allowing me back here. It's shocking that school is in full swing and has been in session for a month. I'm glad to say we've had an excellent first month at Newark Junior High. This past Friday, we had a very successful dance with the theme Glow in the Dark. We also have a fundraiser currently running in which we are selling cookie dough. Should a student sell 5 items, they earn a get out of class pass for a BMX Extreme Stunt Show assembly. We recently held a club day, which was a great turnout. Over 400 kids signed up for clubs, including Drawing Club, Origami Club, and many others. Currently being planned at Newark Junior High is a recycling program because all of us at NJHS care about the environment. The leadership students have began plotting and making a video that will be watched by the entire students that will promote school rules and anti-bullying. Last but not least are our Halloween activities, which will include bobbing for apples and obstacle courses. This will surely be a great time for the students. Any questions from the board?
I was on my way to the dance on Friday with my daughters, and we were going to surprise my granddaughter, but we had second thoughts because we didn't want to be beat up or whatever by my granddaughter, not by anybody else. But I heard it was a wonderful dance, and you guys really enjoyed yourselves.
Yeah, a lot of the student body enjoyed it, so I think it turned out great.
Were there any parents there? Or?
Oh, we had parent chaperones, but no really parents. Saw some of the chaperones dancing.
Mr. Neal wasn't there, or Mr. Knight dancing away, or getting chopped? Anyway, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
From Bridgepoint High School, the McGregor campus, Chris Fernandez and Esther Marquez. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi. Wait, here we go. Hi. My name is Esther Marquez, and I'm from Bridgepoint Leadership. So, good evening, Newark Board of Education, Superintendent, parents, and students. My name is Esther Marquez, and I'm here on behalf of Bridgepoint High School Leadership. I would like to announce our electronics recycling at Bridgepoint High School. If you have any electronics that you do not use, can you please stop by and use it and bring it to us on October 19th. Students and Mr. Orpit have fixed our old computers and set in each classroom. We are trying to make Bridgepoint a digital high school where students can go on any computer on the campus, have easy access, sign in their accounts, and get out. Another topic that I would like to talk about is our school prom. Last year's prom was an absolute success. Therefore, this year needs to be another memorable year. Thank you very much for our support. You have helped us in many ways of your donations anonymously, cashed, our Thanksgiving and other events. We will need another continued support if we're going to help our kids at Bridgepoint High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good job.
Good evening, Newark Board of Education. My name is Chris.
Hi, Chris.
I stand here before you representing Bridgepoint High School once again, speaking for our upcoming events and leadership class. As president of leadership, I am proud to say what we do and how we do it. Our leadership class is very organized and outgoing. We plan events throughout the year for students to have a great time and feel at home while they attend our campus. Some of our upcoming events include our garage sale, a Thanksgiving feast, and a movie night. One of our major events just around the corner is a garage sale on October 6th, this Saturday. We are also accepting donations to sell and build funds for our school and other future events on our campus. With this garage sale in mind, we are also hoping to build funds for our classroom supplies, such as PE equipment and art supplies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Very good.
Mr. Orpet, the date was the 19th for the electronic.
You know, the 19th is the last day you can donate electronics. We're going to have the vendor come and pick up any electronics for us on the 20th. So up until the 19th, we'll take electronic equipment, and our garage sales this Saturday. Just about every day, leadership is moving stuff to a storage area. We are sorting it, pricing it all the time, and then what's left over we'll bring in trucks with parents and staff to the Goodwill. So your donation will end up either being sold or donated to a worthy cause if you bring it by.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And our last student report is our student board member from Newark Memorial High School, Susan Lee. You can, from right there if you would like.
Dr. Markin?
Yes?
Susan, can you excuse me? Member Schaefer had something?
I just wanted to find out the recyclables, if they're supposed to go to the office. Is that where they want all those recyclables? Like, for the electronic stuff?
That's a good question. We'll find that out.
Okay.
Esther, where do they take the electronics?
I'm sorry, Member Schaefer, I should have.
Just don't want to inundate them someplace where they don't want it.
Yeah, right.
No, Member Schaefer had a question for you.
I'm so sorry.
Where do you want that electronic equipment dropped?
You know, we'll take it, you know, some people have called and I've told them they can leave it at 6 a.m. and we just pick it up when we get in.
Where?
Staff is all in tune.
Where do you want it?
Anytime you want to drop it off up until about 5.
Where do you want it though?
Right where the sign is.
Okay.
Is that
Really?
okay? Right
Yeah,
in
that's
front of the-
front office. That's
We
where you
want
want
to make
it.
it as easy as possible. We have a lot of senior citizens,
All right.
so we have kids staged there.
Oh, okay.
We'll take it out of your car and move it for you too, so.
6 to 5?
I'm sorry, I went out to coach my guys and see how they were doing, and I didn't know there were more questions.
Okay, so 6 to 5?
You know, yeah, if it's there in the morning, we just know to pick it up and
Okay.
move it, and we had no vandalism or any problems like that, and then, you know, actually, it'll go even later, but we tell people 5 o'clock. So anytime during the day, we'll take your electronics or anything. I just cleaned out my garage. His snow skis, his boots and poles are going to a good cause. The trail bike that hooks up onto our bike. So we're trying to get, you know, kind of cool stuff that people will be interested in.
Great.
So certainly bring your cash over on Saturday morning. I know there's something that you need there.
Okay.
Director Schaefer.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Susan, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, it's on you.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Lee. I am the school board rep for the for Newark Memorial. So the other week we had a welcome back assembly, and there we talked about the plans for the year and changes to our policy. And we talked about clubs and being involved in our school. And so we had a club parade where clubs could advertise themselves and walk down in the parade, and they have their signs and they might do like a crazy dance or something. And the following week we had a club day, and so we got a lot of students to participate and sign up for at least one club. Let's see. During Newark Days we had about 100 volunteers from the senior class, and we were able to raise $4,000 for the senior class that will go to prom and homecoming. And so on October 19th, we'll have the homecoming assembly, where the top 40 boys and girls are recognized for their involvement academically and in the community. And the week after that is when we have the homecoming presentations from each class, which are always fun to watch if you guys are interested. let's see. This week we've had a lot of UC and CSU workshops. Some of you guys might know that the UC app came out yesterday, and so we want everyone to get an early start if they're interested, and to prevent them from being stressed out later on. Today we had the Cassie retake for seniors, which is going to continue on for tomorrow. And we're also going to have a PSAT on October 20th, which is good for just practicing the SAT or to see if you qualify for a National Merit Scholarship. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Superintendent, announcements?
Thank you, Susan. Just a couple brief announcements. This Thursday is the Alameda County Board of Education and Alameda County Office of Education Teacher of the Year Awards. It will be at Castro Valley Center for the Arts. And Newark Unified School District Connie Pasurcio from Lincoln Elementary is this year's Teacher of the Year, and that will be this Thursday. This Saturday in Hayward at the Oliver Sports Park is Science in the Park. This is a big science opportunity and day where they have in excess of 5,000 participants in the park. Many teachers throughout Alameda County doing science projects. That's this Saturday. This Sunday, a gathering of Ohlone peoples at Coyote Hills Regional Park in Fremont. Tomorrow night, Latino Parent Night at Newark Memorial High School. So a very, very busy week this week, as they all are. And finally, the last, if you see on the screen in front of you, in fact, Duke, could you do me a favor and cut those lights? On September 21st, we had our first official ribbon cutting for the first project from the bond. And I guess ironically enough, we started off with our youngest students, which is probably fitting. So several of us took some pictures, and we would like to congratulate the Whiteford Preschool and show you some of the pictures from the ribbon cutting on September 21st. Well-deserved. Congratulations to Joyce and Katie in the office and the staff, parents, and teachers from Whiteford Preschool. President Rodriguez.
Thank you, Superintendent. We really enjoyed being there. It was an excellent event, and I think the board agrees with you. That's a perfect place to start our projects from the bond that we just passed. Superintendent?
Thank you. I'd like
The
to share.
lights on, or?
Pardon me?
Oh, you want the lights just the way they are right now?
Yeah, just the way they are.
That's fine.
I'd like to take a few minutes to share an idea and a concept with you with the hopes of the board giving staff some direction to pursue a potential change in a calendar. And and I would like to share some of the reasons why. Obviously, we know that all things are negotiable, and as is the calendar, but this is the year that we will be needing to put a calendar committee together to take a look at our school structure. So why am I asking the board to consider this? It's risky. A need to meet graduation requirements. We are still today on an agrarian calendar that is gathering crops during the summer and then starting school in the fall. The last I looked, we aren't gathering a lot of crops. And yet our schedule remains the same. Summer catastrophe. I'll share a little bit about what I mean by that, but summer tends to be catastrophic for most of the students of Newark Unified School District and the students in the state and in the nation. Expanding options for students. Reducing student contacts for teachers. If aliens landed, we have a calendar right now that is, if aliens landed and asked most school districts, tell us about your school schedule. And we would say, well, we start right about Labor Day, and then we go like crazy, and then at winter break we have 2 weeks off, and then we come back for 2 weeks and then do finals. The aliens would say, that makes no sense. Remediation options without the loss of electives. Fewer grading periods. I'm going to share with you a very simplistic potential calendar change and then a little bit more drastic of a calendar change, and then ask the board to ask staff to put together a calendar committee to investigate and then bring back to the board their recommendations. Here's the summer catastrophe. If you notice their reading achievement trajectories, during the school year, there's very little difference. Where our kids, where low and low to middle income students get hurt, look at what happens in the summer. Not only is it a flat line, there is a decrease in learning every single summer. 10, 11, 12 weeks is far too long. Then when we come back to school, our teachers spend 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks just reiterating what they left in the spring. And because some of our students don't have the opportunities that many students have in terms of science camp, athletic camps, learning camps, summer camps, they have 10 or 11 or 12 weeks of just time. So here's our current calendar. I know for some of you it's a little hard to see, but you see basically 10, depending on when school ends, 10, 11, or 12 weeks of constant break in the summer. So what should be some of the keys of a new calendar? We should have allow concurrent enrollment opportunities at our colleges and community colleges. We need to create a structure for change. Education is one of the slowest entities to change. If education were a business, we'd be out of business across this district and across this state and possibly across this nation. To improve student achievement, that is our number one and, quite frankly, only responsibility. We're not here to sell jeans, make burgers, or do anything other than help our students achieve academically and have every available opportunity for them academically when they graduate. Increased elective and interest choices for students. I have said often, prisoners have more choices than most students in our current school systems. And by that I mean, when you get into high school, so much of your freshman and sophomore and junior year is already selected for you. You have very little, if any, choice. And if you have very little or any choice, motivation becomes a little bit of an issue. The creation of new courses, I think as Mr. Irwin, when he was talking about the new teachers and the BITSA program, one of the things I found was a new sense of energy from our current teachers who had the opportunity to work with brand new staff and brand new teachers, and the excitement that that created. Also, I think when teachers can create new courses, I think it gives them a new lease on their academic and educational life. Increased opportunities for teachers to collaborate and reduced time during finals. We have had 2-hour finals for 200 years. And we need to look at that very strongly, because if we are in a standards-based curriculum and now going to a Common Core, our finals should not be a gotcha for the students. In fact, I would even propose that the only reason they should count is if they increase a student's grade. And of course, at high school and junior high, the WASC document, which has talked to us over and over directly about taking a look at potential structural change. This was written in 1998, and we are now in 2012-13, and it still has not changed. This dichotomy of thought that we should improve high school education but not change the structure of the process is even more perplexing when you realize that high schools, and again, these are high schools, not just Newark Memorial, but since we're here, this is who we're talking about. And of course, obviously, Bridgepoint. High schools are hard-pressed to define what the intended result, the educated student, looks like. Most high school officials are not able to describe in holistic terms what a graduate knows and is able to do, but they can tell you what the student took and how many credits the student earned and what student did it best. So some of the best practices, and I have shared these with you in my State of the District address, but again, they do bear repeating: creating and promoting a culture of high expectations, using data to monitor student performance. I think we heard that from Ms. Bringelson and the staff at Bunker. Interventions, we talked about Read 180. Integrating structures that support academic achievement, that's what we're talking about tonight. Parent and community involvement, ongoing focused professional development is critical. Identifying and refining our instructional practices. So what can we do? We must be open to look at a structural change. We shouldn't have a structural change until we have a cultural shift. That needs to take place first, and that has been our focus over this last year and now almost a year and a half, is to change the culture of our organization before we take a look at any structure. I'm going to share a little bit about a trimester schedule at the secondary level for Newark Junior High School, for Newark Memorial High School, and for Bridgepoint High School. It would align itself with our current trimester schedule at our elementary schools. We're currently now at Newark Memorial High School. They have a modified block with 2 Wednesday and Thursday block days and 3 traditional 6-period days. There's also out there a 7-period day that I have my own personal opinion on. And then what is probably the easiest to do, and that is a semester that ends at winter break, so that when winter break happens, actually the semester is done. Another one that's very revolutionary is a 45-week, 4-day-per-week schedule. A few of the secondary schools in our nation have actually are working in that system where the Friday morning is set every day for those that need intensive structured intervention. They don't wait till the end of the semester when they're on life support, but we actually triage earlier. Currently, Newark Memorial has a modified block, 6 periods a day, schedule block, 7 period a day eliminates all students. So if you move to a 7 period day, one of the problems is the students that are the most needy don't get 7 periods. It's the advanced students that their program is so impacted, they are pushed and required to take a 7 period day because they can't take the AP class, the band, the choir, or whatever else they need or want to take. I'm going to show you a schedule that looks at completing the semester by winter break and also a trimester schedule. Both of these, I think, can help reduce the summer plunge. Again, the unbelievable gap. We have talked for 20 years about the achievement gap. That's one of the very, 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 very poignant and clear places where this achievement gap takes place, and yet we struggle with dealing with the obvious research. So, let me try to explain this. This is a semester calendar that will end, the semester ends prior to winter break. Now, before everybody starts going a little bit crazy and counting days or going, oh my God, just hear me out, because all I want to do with this is to create a little interest in exploring options. And here are some of the options that I believe are very critical. Number one, starting earlier. You notice this calendar has us starting at the beginning of August, essentially.
Dave, can you just give us, sorry, can
Sure.
you just give us the legend here? Because I'm looking at different colors and letters. And
all the A's are instructional days.
okay.
The H's are holidays. And so let me give you just in a real quick capsule what we talked about. It actually ties into what Ms. Thomas talked about in closed session on why she's actually in Florida at this particular week. One option would be to start earlier in August, which would truncate the summer. You still end up, if you look, with an 8-week summer break. But you don't have a 3-month summer break. And then what happens is if the calendar committee so chooses and if the board approved, look at that week potential break. One of the things we found in our educational structure, the way that it goes, is everybody gets so insane from the beginning of the year till basically Thanksgiving break. And you find that the levels of suspensions and expulsions rise at that time and at the end of school in May and June, because it's this mad dash to Thanksgiving. And so, for example, if you put a week break in here, somewhere at a quarter break, then you've got some blocks of time, but then you've got a break. You've got a block of time, and then you go to Thanksgiving break. A block of time, and then you are done with the semester at the end of December, or basically before the winter break. So when you start back in January, you start back in the second semester. Second semester starts and you have your presidential holidays, Martin Luther King holiday, and then, just for the sake of discussion, I put in a 2-week break for intervention, for break, for healing, for health, for happiness, because this is the kind of insane time for students, teachers, parents. We've all been there. Then you come back for an intensive break, and then you have another week break, come back for another 5 or 6 week intensive break to the end of school, and you've truncated summer by about 4 or 5 weeks. Research shows that 10, 11, and 12 weeks is just too long. And I don't want you to get locked into those breaks because quite frankly, I would opt for 2 weeks in the fall, 2 weeks in the spring. I think that is a great opportunity to build in interventions for our kids. Allow teachers to teach for a couple days, 2 or 3 days with a small group of students that are required to show up for interventions in the morning when they're fresh and not at the end of the school day. It's not conducive to learning in any way, shape, or form. So the trimester would be divided into 3 obvious trimesters, very similar to an elementary. And so I want to give you some of the advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are it aligns with the elementary schedule. You have new electives. Students have the opportunity to take 12 more classes in 4 years. Here's one of the real clear issues with our current 6-period day. If you fail 3 classes in 4 years, you're not graduating. Unless you take summer school, adult school, night school. Teachers teach 4, students take 5. You have longer class periods, you're able to go more in depth. You have options for trimester interventions, and you also have significant options for high-performing students. You have fewer behavior issues. You say, how can that possibly be? When do most issues take place at a secondary school? During the breaks. You have 1 fewer break. You're only taking 5 classes instead of 6. You're in classes for 70 or 75 or 80 minutes instead of the teachers doing, and here's what they do because I've been in thousands of classes. Okay, everybody, sit down. Let's take out your books. Everybody get settled. Here come 2 students late with passes. Okay, we're 5 minutes, 8 minutes into class. Class is over. Okay, now we're going to start wrapping up. We're going to wrap up. And the time that you save in those 5 or 10 minutes per class, what happened? I just disappeared. The bulb burned out?
We still have you here.
We still got it.
Oh, you still have, oh, great. This ought to be good. Okay. Okay, good. You know, this is, if that bulb burned out, this is the strangest thing. Because I brought my information in this afternoon and I walked back to Liz and I thought, I said to Liz, I swear, what if that bulb burns out?
You jinxed it.
All right.
How about for the...
Yeah, for the camera.
Yeah, but this is for, so that the people can see. As if they could see. Okay.
I'm sure this will be discussed plenty of times.
It'll be discussed plenty of times.
Well, he says he's got it, so.
What's that?
Okay. Duke's
All right.
got it, so.
Disadvantages of trimester. Some of the disadvantages are you will need to put in a year-long course into 2 trimesters. Cost. It will be more costly, obviously, because teachers will teach 4 instead of 5 classes. There may be an additional cost for textbooks, and teachers will need release time to write new courses. And of course, the schedule will have to be redone. It wouldn't be as simple as moving forward and having the semester end at winter break. It would be a pretty significant and substantial schedule change. Let's see what happens here. Oh, there we go. Look at that. So here's what a potential trimester calendar will look like. I know this is really hard to see, but just follow the pointer. There'll be 1 trimester that will begin here. Again, it can begin sometime in the beginning of August, and these dates are somewhat arbitrary. It could begin on the 1st of August. This would be maybe for the calendar committee, to look at, and you're moving down for a block of time, and then notice there in October a 2-week break. This is not a year-round calendar. This is a modified calendar. The break here can be used for a couple days of intensive interventions in the morning for our needy students. It can be a break certainly for our staff and families. Then they come back for another intensive period of time, and then you go into Thanksgiving break, another intensive time, and go into winter break. This is then the second trimester, again, aligns itself more to the elementary schools trimester schedule with, again, winter break and then a 2-week spring break. Then notice that you do the final basic push to the end of the year. Now, this can be in any kind of combination. They can be 1-week breaks. The goal are twofold: to try to provide some breaks for our students and for our parents and for our staff that make sense, where they are an intensive educational push and then a break when you can provide some interventions, you can take a break, and then come back and hit your educational plan and process again. Again, these are arbitrary, but I think that some of these provide a truncated summer and a better opportunity for our kids. So what might it look like? Understand might. So don't go and say, oh my God, we can't go to school till 3/19. Just, this is what it might look like, just so you get a little bit of a flavor. And notice also that school at the secondary level is starting at 8 o'clock. Research is very clear. High school kids need sleep. And quite frankly, 8 o'clock is probably about the earliest that high school should start, in my opinion. Yeah. All of the research shows it. That if they can sleep 10, 15, 20 minutes longer, and you say, well, no, that's not right, they just need to go to bed early. Well, you clearly don't have teenagers. Needs to start at 8 o'clock at the earliest. And what might it look like? You see a 5-period potential student day. Again, don't get locked into this. This is just what it may look like. There's even an opportunity and a possibility for collaboration that is in the morning. So much of our best work we do, or we should be doing, is at the end of the day. When do we do a lot of our interventions? After school. When are kids and teachers and staff exhausted after school? When do teachers get an opportunity to meet together, to plan, and to study data and to be at their best? After school. Is there something wrong with that? So here are some questions, and this is some things that the committee will need to address. How can we address students who fail courses or need intervention? How can we give students choice where they can take an active part in their education? That is, to me, is critical, because when our students leave Newark Memorial High School, they go to college and they have all the choice. They can decide if they're going to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday through Friday. They're going to take morning, afternoon. But in high school, they have 6 periods, 4 years, and that's it. No choice. And during a 6-hour day, how much ownership do students have in their own learning? Questions. What do we do about year-long courses? Which ones are 2 trimesters? Which ones are 3? They all can't be 3. Priority scheduling for at-risk students. Another potential. So what would the effects of testing be? Well, I would venture that with the end of the year testing, if we started earlier, we would have a lot more instruction taking place in our classrooms prior to STAR tests, which could only be a good thing. Obviously, we would have to deal with the issue of finals and the actual trimester dates, the 60, 60, 60, versus the 90 and 90 that we have in our semesters. What are some of the general principles of a trimester? And I'm spending a little more time on this because this is the one that we know of least. We know a 7-period day. We currently have a 6-period day. We have a modified block at Newark Memorial High School. Many of us are familiar with a 4x4 block. That's been around for a long time. The trimester is a little less well-known. I know of 4 high schools in the nation as of last fall that have a trimester schedule. Students can take 5 courses per trimester, 15 for a year. Teachers would teach 4, more individual student time. Teachers who are on track, and this is potentially some of the incentive, could opt out of a class their junior or senior year, or take a college class, or, God forbid, graduate early. Why can't they be rewarded for taking care of business? If a student took 15 courses over the course of a year, they would have 69,700 instructional minutes. If they took 14, they would have 65,000 instructional minutes. Here's one of the issues. A semester is 180 days for the year. A trimester would be 120 days times either 75 or 80 minutes. So you see in actual seat time, it's less. But in my research and in visiting the schools that have a trimester, the teachers at the high schools that I visited would not go back to a traditional schedule. They believe that the time saved in fewer transitions allows them to go more in depth than they would in a 55-minute class, which for all intents and purposes in some classes is 50 or 48 or 47 or 45. So the question that we would need to wrestle with and answer, will longer periods and the ability to go in depth offset the minutes with fewer student changes between classes? It would cost more. A preliminary estimate would be possibly 5 FTE. So obviously the November ballot is really important because that would have a very, very clear implication to our budget and to staffing. Here's a potential student schedule. And again, please, this is what a student schedule might be. Notice English 9 for a freshman would be done in 2 trimesters. The student then could take a trimester of pick a forensic, culinary arts, would give the teachers an opportunity to create new courses that students would actually have options and choices in taking. And also, there's nothing in the world, in the law, that says you can't even split up Art 1A and Art 1B in a fall and a spring trimester and separate it by a semester or trimester winter course. Here's a potential sophomore schedule. Here's a potential junior schedule. Notice the spring semester 5th period, this student would be taking a class of Loney, for example. The AP class would be curriculum and then would be an AP seminar in the spring semester. That's one option, one opportunity. And here's a potential senior schedule. This senior is taking some AP classes and is ahead of graduation requirements. So this student decided not to take a first period class winter trimester or a 5th period class fall trimester because he or she has been taking, and that myth is not a myth that the student is in class, it's a mythology. And here's a potential teacher schedule. Again, these are just samples for the calendar committee to engage in a discussion. It's much better if you have something that you can shoot at than something you have to try to put together and devise in your own head. There's a potential English teacher's schedule in a trimester. Again, this is the one that will create and cause a little more work. Here's a potential social studies teacher schedule. And notice the U.S. History A and B are split between a winter trimester. And it's interesting because when we've talked with teachers about it, they said, well, that's ridiculous. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. We put 12 weeks in the summer. That's ridiculous. So why couldn't we put a trimester between two classes when we put 10 or 11 or 12 weeks in a summer? And we don't even blink about that. And they went, oh, I guess that's true. Here's a potential science teacher's schedule. Again, fewer student contacts, more in depth. Students take 5 instead of 6. A little more humane. Teachers teach 4 instead of 5. And here's a possible math teacher schedule. So, some of the recommendations. I know this has been a really quick overview, but it would be, I would ask the board to direct staff to get together a calendar committee and plan with NTA, obviously CSEA, that's the et al., NUMA, and bring several opportunities and several different schedules to the table to discuss because, and determine which one fits Newark Unified School District and what is best for our students and for student learning. Discuss and plan this school year. We are currently have a calendar in place. Mr. Irwin and I have broached this with NTA over the last few weeks, and they are very interested in pursuing this vigorously. We could consider a 3-year proposal or a 2-year pilot. I would not go for any less than that because 1 year would be, okay, now we've got to make some on-course adjustments, and minimally a 2-year pilot. At whatever calendar the board would agree to, and data would be collected at the end of each year to ascertain whether in fact that achievement gap dip that has been taking place every summer has been reduced. And then a final decision made by the end of year 2, for example, of the pilot. So our expanded choices for kids, increased opportunities for innovation, fewer student contacts, therefore allowing more time for students and the ability to collaborate worth the costs that may be incurred. More fun stuff. Students should be allowed to be concurrently enrolled in Ohlone, Cal State East Bay. They should be allowed to take credit and courses online. We now have students in this digital age that will refuse to go for 4 years to 6 classes. They have far more options and more opportunities to handle and take their own education in their hands. We need to be ahead of that curve rather than behind it. Students should be allowed, if they so choose, to graduate early if they have taken care of business. I think the trimester or minimally the semester ending before winter break is more appealing than a 7-period day. I've been at enough 7 and 6-period days that rats on a treadmill just rings a bell. Everybody's running, everyone's carrying incessant books, running back and forth to lockers. Teachers are hustling between classes. Barely, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Okay, we ran out of time, so students are exercising their options regarding their education. Okay, still more. What is it we expect kids to learn? How will we know when they've learned it? How will we respond when they don't? And how will we respond when they already know it. We've got kids that already know it. Okay, I swear. Last one. We should look at summer school mandatory for any 8th graders with 2 Ds or worse. We should look at a transitional continuation program for 9th and 10th graders. There is no reason that we have 7th and 8th graders that have all Fs and Ds that we send to Newark Memorial High School knowing that they're going to bide their time until they're a junior and then be sent to Bridgepoint. That is unconscionable. Enrichment summer school for first-time offerings, if we do keep a traditional schedule. There is no reason that our best and brightest students shouldn't be able to take enrichment classes in summer school if, in fact, the budget passes and we do have summer school. And at any break, interventions in the few days during the weeks that we have off. Okay, this is truly. The medical model is collaboration. Doctors, nurses, surgeons, they walk from bed to bed and bed, and I've been in the bed when they've come to my bed. And they've talked about my case, and there was one purpose, to heal me. And our educators need time to go into classrooms and do walkthroughs and to collaborate with their colleagues for one reason, for student improvement. We need to stop spending our time talking about the group below us, why they didn't do their job right, if only the parents, well, and if the kids were motivated, well, if the kids were motivated, we're probably not necessary. And, of course, the black star of the district. Rather, our focus should be on student achievement, our own practice, and how it might change. How can we make sure our students are successful? Not make sure that they come all packaged and perfect. How can we make sure our students are successful? So where do we go from here? Collaboration, student achievement, to look at many schedules, a 4x4 block, trimester, the modified block, bring it all to the table and analyze the pluses and minuses of all. And can we be courageous enough to build a collaborative schedule that is right for our kids? Okay, I know you don't have any questions. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Superintendent. Member Crocker wanted to ask you something.
Dream on, no questions. You just opened up a whole vast area of questions. I think it's exciting. I've been through this process before many times looking at various schedules that are there, and I think anybody who's been in education has done that. And I'm definitely looking to do that. My concern is that we do have a problem with money. Mm-hmm. Anything that costs more money is going to be a problem. But that doesn't mean we can't look at it and we can't take the good stuff and start with the good stuff. I don't know how full it has to be in terms of the changeover, whether we can do pieces, whether we can do transitioning in. But we have to know what the options are, and we have to know what the legalities are. I mean, how many minutes are we doing there, and what will the universities look at and see two trimesters? Is that a full English year? Mm-hmm. So will they accept that? Mm-hmm. What will we do with transition kids that come from other districts transferring in? Well, and what I would encourage the board is that we not try to solve that tonight, but, of course but not. The simple answer to that is yes, they do. The colleges do. Okay. And those are all the things that I think a motivated calendar committee, because NTA is extremely motivated in looking at these things, and I know I am certainly motivated to look at them, because we cannot continue to do things the same way and expect different results. And we've done that for a long, we collectively in education.
Member Schaefer?
You had mentioned that it'll cost 5 additional FTE. Is that Is that for
this exam.
the difference, the differential in how many classes each teacher teaches and intervention, or just solely the 4 or 5
That's a
situation?
very generic ballpark for, no, not including the intervention.
Interventions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Member Menson?
Oh, as you might guess, I have a couple of questions. First of all, well, do you want to do the 8:30 thing before we?
Oh, yes. Superintendent, just give us a
Sure.
second. This is the time during the agenda where we have public comment on non-agenda items, no later than 8:30. Vice President Crocker, do we have anybody?
I've had no requests. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to request time to speak? I guess
Okay.
not.
Seeing that no one wants to speak to us during this time, we move back to Member Mensinger.
Okay, thank you. Just some, I'm not going to get into detailed questions because obviously this isn't the place for the detail questions, but just some high-level questions. This is a district-wide plan, not just secondary plan, correct?
It would depend on which way the committee recommended to the board. That's a good question. If they recommended along a trimester line, there would be virtually no movement at the elementary level. The flip could be if they went a different way with secondary to engage the elementary on combining, or in fact keeping a trimester and doing something different. So it really kind of depends on the committee's recommendation.
So you're saying that the committee could potentially come back and recommend that there'd be 2 different start dates, one for elementary school and then one for secondary?
They probably could. I don't know how that would work with the community, but they probably could.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned some staffing issues, which those kind of things I think can be overcome.
Mm-hmm.
One of the issues we tend to have, though, is we do all of our staffing during the summer, and a lot of it becomes insane trying to get hiring done, and then we start, albeit this year was a little better, we still are into the school year and hiring folks. Does this create an issue with, because now you have a shorter window,
Mm-hmm.
Does this create an issue for hiring and proper staffing?
Certainly in the first year, it probably would, just because it would be new if the schedule changed. Typically now, each year, we're going to get better and better at hiring earlier and earlier. Mm-hmm. I think we were better this year than last year, and better last year than the year before. So I think as long as we continue with our demographics and we staff accordingly, I think we should be able to hire earlier. I mean, there will always be a few late hires, no matter what. We just need to minimize those.
Okay. Looking at, because it seemed to be, we talked a lot about secondary, so the master scheduling issues could potentially be a nightmare. Do you also foresee a reduction in the number of classes offered, or a different, I should say that I think I agree with the structural issues that you're talking about. In fact, I'd love to see more educational days move from 180 to 200 or something. But I mean, that's a different, different problem. But the master scheduling, I mean, we have difficulty with that now. So is this a whole streamlined process in classes offering, or do you see that? I'm not going to get into individual ones, but.
Well, I think if the committee looked seriously at a trimester schedule, there would be more class offerings for students. So there would be more opportunities for students to take classes. They would take more each year and more over 4 years. Therefore, having more opportunities to be successful, more opportunities for strategic intervention, more opportunities to get ahead. So it would depend on the schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I went to high school, we had the modular schedule, which was even more. Yeah, which was even more crazy.
Yeah.
But we had the you actually went into a gym and signed up for what classes you wanted, and, you know, and that worked, it worked pretty great.
You're dating yourself.
Yeah, I guess I am. I did see you had 6th period going late, and right now we have, parents have figured this out, and they're moving their kids into A period, so they don't have kids leaving or missing 6th period for sports and other activities. Do you foresee, you know, issues with after-school things, and then potentially, you know, again, this, where you have, now you're having longer classes, and now they're missing more and more, a larger percentage of these classes?
Well, in high school, you'll always have these issues because we don't set the rules. We don't set the start time for games. You'll have, some sports will have matches or games right after school. Freshmen tend to have them earlier in the day. Typically, obviously, baseball has to be earlier in the day because they don't play under the lights. And those are usually set by NCS or CIF. That is a constant conundrum for all high schools, both for, you know, on one hand, you want to have on-site staff as your coaches because they have a great opportunity to have regular daily encounters with their students. The flip side of that is they sometimes have to leave early. The alternative is to have all off-campus coaches, and I've lived in that, and that's not any fun either, because then you've got 20 people who aren't around school, don't know the kids, but could coach volleyball. And you're exchanging one set of problems for another one. So it is a perennial problem at every high school that I've ever been associated with or known. I think there are ways to mitigate that, but at various levels, it will be an issue.
Okay. You mentioned, you mentioned costs and potential teacher costs and stuff. What about administrative help? We'll probably, I could see where we may need additional counselors to help with scheduling additional maybe, and I'm a firm believer we need them now because we don't have them at the McGregor site, or we need to share them over there, one or the other. But I mean, this is something that we would probably have to consider as well. The college acceptance, you mentioned that their colleges are already dealing with this anyway. So that it won't affect the A to G direction that we're moving in. Okay.
No, it will not.
You had this slide here, and they're not numbered. It's on page 11 of ours. But semester versus trimester, and semester minutes, you have 180 times 55, so that's 180 days, so that's 2 semesters.
Correct.
Times 55 is 9,900, okay. You have trimester minutes, 120. Why is it 120 days instead of 180?
Because each trimester would be 60 days, 60, 120, 180. So for example, a year-long class would be 2 trimesters, would be a sample. So you would have 120, but you would have a longer class period, which would equal whatever that, 9,000 or...
9,000.
Yeah. If it was 75 minutes and if it was 80-minute classes, it's a little over. So the difference between the year-long class and the other is that either 600 to 900 minutes.
Okay.
Depending on which trimester you take. And of course, the issue then becomes, well, we're losing instructional time. What the teachers found in a trimester schedule was actually they weren't. Because when they looked at one fewer class per day and the amount of time it took to get actually class started with kids coming in and then getting them to wrap up and here's your homework and do you have any questions, that they found that they were actually were able to go more in depth and spend more quality time with their classes.
No, I like the longer class periods. In fact, I have no clue why we're still doing a modified block or a block schedule at high school. No clue why we're still doing that. But you wouldn't consider a year course 3 trimesters?
No, 2.
Well, the only problem with that is it would be about 10 to 12,000 minutes over a current year schedule. And because then it gets into, it becomes an exorbitant length of time.
So, okay, so just help me out. What constitutes a year, ed code wise, the minimum number of minutes to be considered a year course?
Well, Ed Code really talks about the minimum number of minutes that overall minutes. Yeah.
So it's so it comes down to whether the colleges will accept.
That's right.
Trimester 1 and trimester 2
as a year course.
As a year course.
Right.
And, okay, so that's something we need to find out, but you don't
right, well, and also there are a lot of high schools that allow students to take in summer courses to get ahead. There's chemistry, biology, and those are a fraction of the time. In fact, that's the big rub, is that they're a small fraction of what a year-long course is. And there's still a lot of schools that give those for credit for graduation.
Okay. Just a couple more quick ones. The transitional continuation school, I am a firm believer in that. I think it's a different issue from this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
But I think that's something that absolutely we need to do. Okay, so, all right, so as far as this goes, I don't have any issue with this. I wouldn't call it a calendar committee, though. I'd call it an exploratory committee and have them look at this in the various scenarios and, you know, go through this. Obviously, there's questions about consistency with ed codes and consistency with college courses. I do agree that, as we see now, kids and parents are getting smarter, that rather than taking AP classes, they're taking classes at Ohlone or junior colleges because they're directly transferable, whereas the AP classes, sometimes they get credit for them, sometimes they don't. But the college courses, they do. And they're a lot smarter because that's saving them money in the long run. So I think that's a good idea. Although the online, I get concerned about the ADA. If they do online, do we still get the ADA?
Member Metzinger, I'm sorry, you've been on for a while. Do you mind if we move over here to Member Schaefer?
Can we just answer the last question? Sure. Do you know if we get on ADA? Do we get ADA for online courses?
Well, we get ADA if they're in school. I mean, I don't know that if a student, unless they went into the independent study program and went completely 100% in an online school structure, which wouldn't be out of the question, quite frankly.
Okay. My suggestion would be, maybe for us individually, and I have had meetings with Dr. Markin and going back and forth, maybe having a workshop. It's something we might consider. I think what you're asking now is for us to give you direction on the calendar committee or exploratory, or it could be both. Okay, we can do that now, or what we normally do, in my experience, is doing board requests. That's when we normally give direction. So how does the board feel about that?
I think Janice needs to, did you have a chance to talk?
Well, no, I'm just asking the board, because you're asking for direction. Okay, do you want to do that now, or would you rather do that during board request?
I'd rather do it now.
Let's do it now.
Okay, Member Schaefer, go ahead.
Well, maybe it's presumptive now, but anyway, I just wanted to thank staff for thinking out of the box. We know that intervention is a difficult area, and the sooner it happens, the better it is. So I think we need to look at any options we can possibly muster to help our kids get to another spot.
Okay, thank you. Member Crocker?
When we're looking at the teacher day, how does the teacher day differ in terms of the number of minutes of student contacts versus the contract? Is there an issue with that? In other words, can we put an intervention because they would have less student contact minutes? Am I correct? Or not?
They would have fewer student contacts, not fewer.
Right,
not
but less.
fewer
But
minutes.
number of minutes per day would be the same. It would be less than it is right now.
It'd be the same.
7.5 hour days, so.
Yeah, it would be
So the student's going a longer day.
potentially.
So the teacher then, in terms of the student contact minutes, would be the same? Less?
I don't know that I would answer that only because it would depend on what the Calendar Exploratory Committee came back with.
Agreed, but with the schedule you had set up, the trimester.
Well, again, that's why I didn't really want to show it, but I didn't have a choice because I needed to have something to shoot at. You know, the idea is to give students a choice in their education. And if we can build that in a schedule that makes sense, that can create fewer student contacts. I mean, we can afford it, no question. All of those things are very important issues.
I had something, Dr. Markin, are you?
I'm finished.
You said only 4 schools in the nation, 4 districts?
4 schools that I'm aware of as of last year.
Okay. And any of them in California?
Yeah, 3 of them. There's one in Michigan, was the first one. San Luis Obispo High School, Livermore High School, and Granada High School.
It's obvious to all of us, at least I would think so, that the fact that so few schools have done it it's very difficult to implement. That being said, I think that we've always talked about thinking outside the box and what's best for our kids. And it's obvious that having our kids off for 12 weeks during the summer adversely affects our students and their ability to retain what they've learned, especially low-income kids, and because of the not having the money to do special programs during the summer. I've always sent my kids to some kind of a summer program, and not everybody can afford to do that. So, so at least addressing that. So in the makeup of the committee, is the board going to have some input on who's going to be on the committee?
The board can. I mean, typically it's a calendar committee, and NTA selects some people from in the history of this district. And Mr. Rowan, correct me if I'm wrong, that NTA and the district bring individuals together, and typically up to this point it has been the standard calendar, and what they decide are when the actual start date is, when the winter break's going to occur, all of those sorts of things. So this would be a radical departure from that. Yeah. I mean, no matter what they were going to look at, even if it were going to be something as simple as just ending the semester. I mean, maybe that's the bridge position that but that still will create a little bit of time.
This would be a little bit going beyond just having
Yes.
a calendar committee.
Yeah.
My understanding. Okay, Member Metzinger, and then we probably need to give our superintendent direction.
Well, that's why I would suggest to call it an exploratory committee and not have just the regular calendar committee folks, but have NTA leadership, CSBA leadership, NUMA leadership, and people getting in, because it's going to take a lot of investigation, and it's going to take a lot of, because obviously if your findings, if staff is happy with the findings, they're going to come back to the board, and the board's going to need to see a plan. A detailed plan. How is this going to be implemented? What's the costs associated with it? What are the risks that we're taking? Things like that. So that's why I say it's probably more than a calendar. Because I'm thinking of the calendar committee in the past has just been, a few employees getting together. They kick around a number of dates, and they put together some straw man proposals. They get some input on it, and then they end up, fighting for a while and come up with an idea. And I think this is a lot more than that. So I think that, and I disagree that just because there's only a few districts that it's, it's that hard. I think it's just that different. And so that just, and we should be open to new ideas. I agree with Ms. Schaefer that, thinking out of the box and helping our students is, we should always look for that. I think that's what we owe our students, our parents, and our community. So I'm all in favor of allowing staff to set up this exploratory committee to look at the various proposals or the various ideas and come back and, you set up a schedule. Maybe you can give it to us in the Friday update of when you think you can come back with some preliminary ideas or some progress, and I'm all in favor of that.
Okay. That's just, okay. Thank you for the suggestion on the exploratory, and then each one of us will have to input on that. One of the things, Dr. Markin, if we call it exploratory initially, one of the things is, transitioning that particular committee into the calendar committee. That's what I was thinking about. Member Crocker?
I think of the calendar committee, I underline what Member Mensinger said, is the calendar committee takes the structure you have and works out a good calendar for it. And I think we're talking about changing the structure in a lot of ways, more than just the beginning dates and the end dates. And I think that we need to make that decision first as to whether that's going to be a good educational thing to do. I'm excited the fact that we've got 2 schools in the area that are doing it. They're taking the trimester because we can go out and see them. It won't cost us anything except for a few hours of our time. And so that's kind of exciting. I would like to see the board involved in this process, and I'd like to see students involved in this process. And again, that's outside the realm of calendar, which is a union thing to do. So I like your term. What'd you call it again?
Exploratory.
Exploratory, whatever. I think that's a fine term because it says more than what we're talking about. And then, then when we do that, then after we decide whether it's a good or bad thing, then we can manipulate dates because that's a relatively simple thing to do. But this is talking about a really basic structure that's different, that's impacting the kids in a different way, and we'll have to decide whether, number one, whether we can afford it, because I always think, money is what allows you to do stuff. Whether we can find ways that people can help us afford it, I don't know whether that's an option too. So I think that we need to go from that point.
Thank you. Member Schaefer?
I'd like to make a motion that we have an exploratory calendar committee look at this option.
This really wouldn't be a motion, it would just be giving the staff direction.
I guess what I'm trying to do is wrap it up.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Well, I do have one question on that, because I think that an exploratory committee is going to go on longer than a calendar committee. Okay. Our calendar, when does it expire, Mr. Irwin?
The current set that we have actually has a calendar through 13-14, but under our contract this year we would meet to negotiate 14-15.
So it would have to go through a change if we do this anyhow.
So how could we handle that? Can we do a 1-year contract, or can we suspend it while this, because it's going to take a little while to get this all together, and even if we came up with an idea, it's going to take a while.
Right. Well, can I just recommend that we let them worry about the details, and we just agree that they can go ahead and worry about those details right now so that we can get the ball rolling on it?
You called it an exploratory calendar committee.
That's what I called it,
Okay, that's fine.
But
We do that.
I suspect the name is less important than what they do.
Right. I just have, so it looks like we have consensus on
Yes.
giving you direction. I just had, Dr. Markin, just a quick question before we move on. If the money is going to be a bigger issue than what we think, could we also look at districts or high schools that are addressing the summer droppage that you talked about, as far as the, that are doing it within their means and maybe without a trimester, and maybe things, because we are thinking outside the box. I was hoping maybe we can look at that also, if you don't mind. Okay, I think it's pretty clear that you've got the direction. Everybody agree?
Did we give you enough direction?
I think so.
Why don't you tell us what we're going to do?
We're going to with key stakeholder groups, establish an exploratory committee to take a look at calendar options. I think to factor in things like cost, maybe putting together some criteria. For example, I've heard, are we able to shorten the summer? Are we able to provide options for kids, particularly our secondary students, and that it can be obviously within the cost constraints that we have and we'll know even clearer about in November.
Right. I think having kids that are getting D's and all the other things you mentioned is something that is dear to our heart, enrichment and classes and stuff like that. Okay, so we move to the, are you okay? Anything
yes.
else?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No.
Let's move to the consent agenda. We don't have any B's.
Move approval.
We have A. Member Schaefer
Second.
moves A1. Member Menzinger seconds. Please vote. Okay. Okay, motion passes unanimously, 4 ayes with Member Thomas being absent. Any board member comments on consent calendar items? I think we've talked a lot already, so we're going to move on unless somebody wants to address something. Employee organization, CSEA. Thank you, Superintendent, for the presentation. Hi, Mary.
Hi, we would hope that CSEA would be included in this decision-making process. We didn't hear them mentioned. And so we'd hope that...
Right.
I thought you said CSBA.
I said CSEA.
Okay, well, you mentioned it and I didn't understand. Okay. CSEA is watching the development of the tentative agreement, which is to be approved by the school board. The word all over the district is there is a slight increase to the pay to NTA through their settlement made with the district COLA from a few years back. It's our hope that the district will remember this when our negotiations come up as we work together to create equality for all members of the district. CSEA is busily campaigning for the passing of Prop 30 and the defeat of Prop 32. Phone banking, precinct walking, and site visits are just a few ways that we are working on these campaigns. And CSEA would like to start inviting Dr. Markin to attend our EERC meetings once a month. If you can attend a few a year, it would be very, very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody from NUMA or NTA? Okay, seeing none, we move to committee reports, announcements, and requests. Member Schaefer, you want to go first?
I was fortunate enough to have Ms. Thomas be my alternate for the last ROP meeting, so maybe when she returns we can hear from her. I did meet with Mr. Apodaca to talk about a timeline for some of the things that are happening relative to the City Schools Youth Task Force, and I know you got an update from Dr. Markin, so you have some of that information. There are a lot of things happening. There are a variety of themes that have been taken under the wing of the group, one being the truancy, which you've already known about, but that's just for the winter fall kickoff. And then it moves into bullying, and then last into the area of health. And there's just a lot of things happening at one time on that group, and it's really exciting. So, of course, I'll be rolling off, and there's now co-chair instead of just a single chair. There are a lot of duties that are being shared. I know that Mrs. Warren is taking minutes every other meeting, and every other meeting it's held here, and every other meeting it's the city. So there's a lot more shared teamwork happening, and a lot of really good networking on the committee as well. So just, it's really, really exciting. I think Ms. Crocker would agree.
Member Crocker.
I do have a second chance meeting, which will be in about a week or so. Apparently there's some issues with money, which I guess all agencies have, and so they called a special meeting that would be to address this issue. So I'll be going to that. Ms. Schaefer and I were at the Joint Task Force for Youth concerns or issues along with Dr. Markin, and I think she's absolutely right. There's an excitement there that I haven't seen for a couple of years, so that's really kind of neat. I do want to let you know that we do have a project coming up that I'm going to ask you if you will help with. involves judging some items of student work. And so it will be in November. So if I can twist your arm to say yes before you know what it is, I would appreciate that. It's kind of exciting to look to see what would be the positive reasons why students would want to come to school. And so that's sort of how we're addressing truancy from what are the consequences if you don't come, but also what are the reasons you do come. So we want to do both positive and negative as far as that goes. So there's some exciting things happening. You'll hear about them as they get more scheduled.
Okay, thank you. Member Metzinger?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Okay, I just have a couple things. Before I just share with you just some little visits that I had. The future meeting dates, we have an extra board meeting in October for the 30th. And then we had changed our first board meeting in November, because part of it was we thought we were going to have board members, the election, but now that we're not, Superintendent, could you kind of just share with us what you intended to cover during the October 30th meeting? The extra meeting in October? Just curious.
I don't remember one.
I don't have my board planning calendar in
So there's
front of me.
nothing that, okay. So board, do we still want to have that meeting? And the other question is, do you want to change the November 13th meeting to the 6th?
I could speak to that. I'm probably going to be working the polls that day. So even though I'm not running for something, I may be working that day. So I would like to keep the 13th. I think part of the reason we set it up too is because there's only one meeting in November.
Right.
And so it sort of takes care of the November needs. Okay. I don't remember us having the 30th rather than it was a holding date.
I have it down too on my calendar.
Okay, so it might be something that we might do a workshop.
Well, given the light agenda this evening, it's probably going to be a heavy agenda then.
Okay.
Just guessing.
Okay, so we'll just keep it on as a holding date, and then we'll keep November 13th.
Can we check in with staff and see if it's necessary? Since staff typically drives a lot of the agenda, so maybe...
I'll get together with Dr. Markin.
Okay, because it's possible we may not need a meeting that night. On the other hand, if it's necessary, it's necessary.
Heck, we could have a workshop just on the, what Dr. Markin talked about tonight. On that
Could
day.
do that too.
There might be timing for that.
So, okay, so we're okay there. I did get the opportunity to visit the junior high school, and I'll be visiting the high school, and then I'm going to try to join Dr. Markin on some of his visits. So I would encourage the board to, if you have free time, if you want to join me, or I know Charlie's always, well, all of you. Janice has less opportunity because of her schedule. I had a chance to meet with Supervisor Valle, and Dr. Markin seems to be working very well with him, and that's important because we want to be in line to get any monies from the county, and the county does have discretionary monies, and in the past we haven't been able to get that, and it seems like we're doing that now. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Does District 2 donate money to schools?
Programs that affect our kids. Dr. Markin, you want to address that? From the county, from District 2?
Well, there's been very little involvement with Newark Unified and Newark and District 2. So I've had a couple meetings now with Assemblyman Valle, and certainly we're interested in working together. They actually have hired some of our students, some of his organization, some of our Bridgepoint and Newark Memorial High School students. So any kind of political networking we can do, the better.
Yeah. Well, we have a good history. I have, and I'm sure we all have in different ways. His wife was a school board member in Union City, and we served together with different RP and SELPA and stuff. So So we're excited that that relationship is strong. Okay, I don't have anything else. Anybody else? Okay, so it's 9, what time is it?
According to this clock, it's 9:07.
Okay, it's 9:04.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned.